Another episode of DoubleBuffs.
Oh, and we are here on this fine Thursday to talk about the Premier League of Professional League of Legends
And LCS.
and the LCS.
So, how was your day today?
My
Do
day
anything fun?
No, today was pretty boring. I didn't do much of anything, actually. I tried a new pizza place. It was pretty good. That was probably the highlight. I'll be getting pizza from there again. And,
Nice.
Not much going on.
I got all-you-can-eat sushi today, which was fire, per usual. Recommend trying it to anyone that has not tried it, because it's only like $23. You can get all-you-can-eat sashimi, sushi. Great deal.
Delicious, yeah. I love sushi. I'm a sushi fiend.
All right, so this week on the pod, I wanted to talk a little bit broader picture.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And something I was thinking about 2 days ago was this concept of, short-term versus long-term, micro versus macro, working smarter versus working harder.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about these different things as I was kind of reviewing last week's games. And I came to the conclusion of direction versus content. Now, what do I mean by this? I think this applies to a lot of different things. You have passions in high school, you pick your major for college, you're leading yourself down a path. Like, part of the reason I'm doing this podcast with you is because I kind of want to be a commentator for esports. So I was like, yeah, I want some resume experience. This is the direction that you take. When you have like a test for school, you can study for a specific test. That's kind of the direction, right? Or you study over the course of the semester. There's different ways of looking at it, and the content is how you do on the test. And I think the same thing applies to League of Legends in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of like hard stuck Plat 5, Shaco main, but I was doing everything. I wasn't really paying attention to stuff. And then once I just started one-tricking him, I could, from game to game, I could focus on how to counter jungle better, how to trade objectives, because my micro skills, my content was a lot better because I just was playing the same champion. And I think when, I think you can relate these to some of the top teams in the LCS right now. I think C9 has really good direction and really good content. When you have really good players already, you're going to have a high skill floor, I should say, just because you can outplay your opponents. But some of the things that these teams are doing, like C9, they're recognizing that, they should be putting fudge on tanks and then figuring out other stuff, how to play around it. And their content is good. They're like, we want to minimize Fudge's weaknesses early and maximize Perk's strengths.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing that to really well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think going down the list, I think Dig is obviously one that has a really good direction. They're not necessarily the most skilled players, but they're letting Dardoch carry in the early game. They're telling the rookies to be support players. They're letting Aphromoo make a lot of big calls. So they have a really good direction as a team.
Mm-hmm.
Which over the course of the LCS, it has been paying dividends so far. I think TSM 2. Sorry, this is kind of lengthy. I'll get this off and
sure.
I'll let you jump in. I think TSM 2, they've had really good direction too. They're like, okay, we just need to grind down the fundamentals, put Huni on a weak side carry champion that can be Gnar, Shen, and let Swordard do his roams, play through Power of Evil. And they've done that really well, and that's why they're succeeding right now. This past weekend, they branched out into more of a 1-3-1 or 1-4 composition with Jace, which is really good. I think, Bjergsen's a seasoned vet. He knows the steps they should be taking to succeed. They developed one good play style, and now they need to branch out a bit before playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So C9's good at both. TSM and Dig have really good direction. TL and EG and 100 Thieves are kind of experiencing somewhat of a roadblock. They have really good content. And what I mean by that is they have good players.
I was going to ask for clarification there. Yeah. So content being the players' raw skill, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Raw skill and just playing team fights well, stuff like that from a game-to-game basis. But when your direction as a team becomes just improving your content, trying to out team fight, you're not going to make these. You're not going to get better from week to week, and I think that's what's happening right now with TL and EG and 100 Thieves. I think more so with EG and 100 Thieves, you can see that especially EG when they're it's kind of just do or die by Jizuke. If he plays well, then they can out team fight sometimes, and it's just every game seems to be a 50-50 play. And 100 Thieves, when you ban out TF and Galio, they don't really have a good game plan after that. TL is kind of more acceptable, but yeah, that's what I was thinking. Direction versus content, micro versus macro.
Yeah, I really like that idea of direction and sort of having to work on your direction to really improve as like a team. That's kind of what you're saying, right? Because we're involved in the team play. And I've been thinking a lot. That's funny. It segues pretty well because I've been thinking a lot about how these teams are actively improving throughout the split. And like you said, some teams, 100 Thieves, EG, to name a couple, seem to be maybe not improving at such a quick rate. I'm not, obviously, you can't say quite what it is, but
they're like stagnating almost.
Yeah. They're stagnating. So I think that's really applicable. And what is that? What would that be? A theory, a hypothesis, or a?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Hot take.
Yeah. I mean, there we go. That's what we have around here on the DoubleBuffs.
We even talked about this after me and Cristiano and I, did our first couple of podcasts. The format of our podcast was pretty good, right? We went through game by game. Each game we were doing, it had a very clear format. But when we focused so hard on that direction, I think our content was lacking. So what we've done now is we're not like, hyper focusing on like a specific format. We're just focusing more on our content. And I think that's how we're going to get better long term, at least as of right now.
Yeah, more enjoyable to watch. And eventually when we have that part down, maybe it becomes possible to really do deep dives on each match while not having content suffer.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if that made sense. It was just on my mind, so.
No, I think it did. I think it definitely did. And hopefully my questions, I was trying to put myself in the mind of a viewer, what questions they might have. So hopefully that was clear to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Just when I asked, so the content would be sort of the player's skill, and my light just dropped. That's all.
Yeah. Or just more like short term versus long term.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we're doing the podcast, we're thinking about it really long term as in an episode, and then each individual conversation in the episode. I'd say this conversation right here would fall under content.
Mm-hmm.
The entire direction of where we go from step to step on this episode would be direction, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, you good. I like everything you said because you also touched on a bunch of things I wanted to talk about.
What do you want to talk about first?
What do I want to talk about first? So I think before this, I didn't realize they had talked about it on the dive. So I promise you, this is my fresh, original take. But I've been thinking a lot about these sort of fake teams, these fake good teams that that's a little bit harsh. But the teams that early on in the season or throughout the season, I think are we 2/3 of the way through now? I think we are. Yeah, because I think there's 6 weeks.
I'm not completely sure.
Anyway, yeah. They've sort of kept up a good appearance as far as their win-loss ratio goes. But like you were saying, these teams, 100 Thieves, EG, maybe even Dig, I'm not sure about them yet. I don't know how they're getting all these wins, and yet they seem, in my mind's eye, to not be that great. I think of
I think that relates back to what I said, right?
Mm-hmm.
You, as a viewer, you can kind of see from a week-to-week basis some of the improvements some of these teams are making, like Dig and TSM and C9. That's the direction. EG and 100T are just, forcing their way through team fights, and they're winning based on their skill and their game to game,
Yeah,
on a game to game basis.
You just like brain blasted me. So it's not so much that these 100 Thieves EG types, I don't want to rail on them too hard, but they're the one. I mean, they're better than your CLGs and your GGs at least. So, but they're not necessarily they're not necessarily like bad per se. I feel as if though you're right, they're just at the same level as they were maybe at the beginning of the split, or obviously they've improved a little bit probably. But these other teams are improving at a quicker rate, and it's starting to show as those other teams are starting to fall behind in the standings. We now have 100 Thieves and 100 Thieves is still tied for second. All right. I'll reserve judgment on them, but EG at least has dropped down to like that third place slot, that 7 and 5 slot with Dig and Team Liquid. And so, yeah, it's starting to show because what was their record at their height? It was really good. I forget exactly. EG. But now they're almost even in losses. I remember before the ratio, they were like 4-1 or something. And now they flipped. So, yeah.
I think EG in particular, I look at Sven Skaren, and he doesn't really seem like he knows what the team's plan is.
Yeah.
The communication seems off. Sometimes I see someone go in or get caught, but they have a way of getting out, like a Tom Kench can save them or they can flash out. And Sven Skaren sees them getting caught, and he's like, oh, time to go on Olaf. Let's ultimate in. And then now he's the one getting caught out. And
honestly, I don't want to call him like the weakest part of the team because I think Jizuke has been trolling. but the flip side of the Jizuke troll coin is sometimes he does the opposite of trolling. And as far as I can tell, Sven Skaren hasn't quite hit that power point, the O10 Yas power spike.
It's like you put Cristiano's and solo cute efforts into an LCS player, and then you get Jizuke.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mr. Famine.
Although I will say, as of late, I've been trolling every single game I go into. I don't know what's wrong with me.
And then another team that I think a lot of people have been talking about recently is 100 Thieves. Now I'm kind of getting some PTSD from the 100 Thieves of old, where some days playing really good and the rest of the team just doesn't really know how to play around him as well. I think that's the next step they should be taking as a team. They have this Galio TF, style down for Damonte, but Damonte needs to figure out some other safe picks when he doesn't get them, and the team needs to know how to play around someday or their bot lane. I don't know. I think it mainly falls down to Damonte and Closer, and just the team chemistry as a whole, but that's how they can take themselves to the next step. Yeah. TSM, right? They boiled down on their fundamentals, and now they're experimenting with Jace top. That's the next step they're taking as a team. C9, they've kind of unlocked 4 of their players, and now Fudge is really comfortable playing safe side, and now they're starting to give him Camille again. That's the direction you need to be taking for some of these teams.
He's earned his Camille privileges back after the lock-in tournament.
Yeah.
I think you're spot on about Damonte, unfortunately, because he's such a likable character with the whole Tanner time thing. But oh my goodness, when they played Dignitas this weekend and he was on Oriana, I was shaking my head. He went like 0-4. He was just whiffing. It was really ugly. And so it reminds me of Clutch, because Clutch Gaming, when they went to Worlds, they managed to make... Did they make a Gauntlet run? I don't remember exactly. But
they looked really good in Gauntlet. They went like 0-6.
In Worlds, yeah.
Yeah, they're in the group of death.
They were looking like a mid-tier team at best, I would say, before that. And then they figured out this sort of setup where Damonte was playing these weird picks that could really easily get shove, control sort of the tempo of the mid lane. I remember Rumble was a big one. Back when
Kiana.
You can shove the wave right in. Roam, you're good. Kiana.
Maybe that's what they need to do as a team, is bring back this old play style of Damonte. Maybe it's not meta right now, but you kind of have your meta. You have your version of the meta, Azir and Syndra haven't been working. Maybe embrace, like, look at what Doinby is doing in China. He brought out Nautilus mid a couple weeks ago. Bring out these champs that you can just shove or sacrifice wave and roam.
Exactly. Yeah,
You'd be the only one. Yeah, you'd be the only one doing it in that LCS. So it'd be your own flavor, which can come up big in a 5-game series.
And yeah, beyond your own flavor, it's if you're one of these players who's known for like a signature pick, you can draw bans in draft, and that can be hugely advantageous for the rest of the team to perhaps get OP picks or comfort picks, which is just obviously very beneficial. I was trying to think of if any of their individual teams or players were looking like a weak link that he could maybe draw bans away from, but I think they're all pretty similar now, besides Big Daddy someday in the top lane.
So earlier I mentioned Fudge a teeny bit.
Yeah.
And I've been really happy with Fudge. He got a lot of heat, but he's not getting a lot of credit for fixing his performance. I think he's slowly turning into this impact mold type of player where he's reliable. He can play safe side very well. He can't, in my opinion, I think most people's opinion, he can't carry as hard from the weak side as maybe Impact can, but he debatably has a larger champion because some picks Impact just doesn't play. He doesn't really play Camille, for example.
Yeah.
So over time, if Fudge can get to where Impact was of old, and then he still has a higher ceiling, I think sky's the limit.
I think, yeah. Also, like just looking at the top laners in the league, it's hard to put too many above him with this current performance. I think Someday is the obvious one, and then maybe you're looking at Hooney's been looking good, but he's sort of playing that same style. So
he looks pretty good on Jace.
That's true. That's true. Speaking of drawing bans, yeah. So that new look, you were saying them improving, not to go back to that talk too much, but that improvement now, just like I said, can draw bans. It can help the rest of your team. It's lovely if you show you can play these sort of unorthodox things.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. Go for it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to segue into TSM, but if you wanted to finish up on top lane with whatever you're saying.
I think Someday is probably the best top laner in the league right now, which he seems to be every split, funnily enough. And then there's not really.
I mean, there's Alfari, there's Impact, but I mean, in the start of the split, we were saying how awesome top lane was and how everything was happening through top lane. Now it seems like we're back to top lane just being like, we there's some talented players, but teams can't necessarily carry through them like they could in the lock-in tournament.
Gragas.
Lots of Gragas.
Yeah.
But cycling into TSM, or segueing, I should say.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, they really dove down onto their fundamentals, figured out a play style. Now they're expanding and trying out the other side of Hooney, where he's the super lane dominant carry player. Because when you get to international competition, you can't just have one play style. And I think historically, TSM comes in with a pretty refined play style, whether that's play through Doublelift or Bjergsen. Like last season, it was carry through top lane, through Broken Blade, Doublelift plays, Senna's supportive, so does Bjergsen. And then when other teams throw a wrench in that, right, they just completely fall apart. And historically, they haven't been that great they haven't really won by outdrafting their opponents or by level 1 plays. But I think these are different things you can look at to spice up your game to the next level. FlyQuest, last split, a lot of people were saying that about them. They're saying Power of Evil only plays mages. They can only play through Power of Evil. And then they added really cool early pathing for Santorin and level 1 plays. And I think this is nice to see them trying out the Jace, even though they lost against FlyQuest. Hooney still looks good on it. And I think the team's going down a good direction.
I think the Jace was really good. So I wanted to talk a little bit about like side laning. I think that's been a big topic, and just like the community in general, other shows and stuff like that. And so most teams do not utilize like side lanes, and I don't know if it's because their players because ideally it should be coming from a coaching staff, understanding how to side lane when you're weaker than the enemy and you can't contest an objective. You can side lane to make up for the objective a little bit. Maybe you get
you can trade on the opposite side.
Cooney was doing it really well on Jace, and there were multiple times where he was bot lane where who were they playing against in the Jace game? Do you remember?
They played CLG, who they won, and they played FlyQuest, who they lost marginally to.
Yeah. I think it was. It was. Yeah, it was the CLG game. So him and, Sword Art on Rakan. I remember Rakan was hovering right out of vision as Huni was hitting the inhibitor tower, and there were like 3 or 4 CLG people hitting Baron. So obviously the what they communicated was that we'll send Huni bot with our support, and we'll basically give this Baron, and we can maybe get a pick on the top laner who's down there. So we'll get rid of Baron on that person. And if we do that, we can maybe even get an inhibitor, which would be lovely because it sort of negates Baron a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So TSM is one of the only teams I've been seeing do stuff like this to this extent, where they're really trading objectives. And the other one is C9, where perks, it's sort of what one of the things G2 was known for. So he seems to have brought that a little bit over from Cloud9.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really impressed with TSM right now.
It definitely seems like not being able to trade objectives across the map seems like it's been one of NA's weaknesses for a long time, where you see the other team, like during Worlds, right? We'd see NA versus Chinese teams, and they'd be getting like their second Drake, and our North American team would be already behind, and then for some reason we just still fight for it when it's like the second Drake.
Yeah,
when you can just take the turret on the other side or Rift Herald.
Exactly. It's crazy. And I don't know, so I would think that this sort of strategy would come from the coaching position, because it's sort of like a whole team decision. You saw like they had the Rakan along with the Jace.
I mean, like the coach can help, but you need like good communication when this is happening. Yeah. So maybe let's say when they had Biofrost like on TSM, he was kind of a quiet player. So it makes these things harder when you have a quieter player, or maybe like someone that doesn't speak English as well.
Exactly, yeah. And I think I'm wondering if it's the sort of thing where there's like bigger fish to fry. Like some of these players have bigger issues than not being able to side lane, and they have to sort of conquer those issues first. Like sorry, I'm laughing just saying his name. Just like Niles.
I think that's a good example of, you need to improve your content. You need to improve your last hitting, your wave management focus, just these fundamentals like warding, understanding,
Yeah, Niles needs to become an LCS one trick is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, he needs to main Shaco and only play Shaco.
That sounds like a path to victory.
Yeah, what were you going to say? Go ahead.
I was going to talk a little bit about Spica, but if you have something else.
Talk about Spica. Go ahead.
I just think he is the standout player on this roster right now, which is amazing, considering how he looked so rough just like a year ago or so when he first came into the league. But there were some circumstances there. If I remember right, TSM, that was the height of TSM's jungle role falling apart, where they were switching between.
And he was a rookie too, so.
Yeah. But he's become such a beast. In the TL game, which is probably their hardest game this weekend. It was a long game. It was very even for a long time. He was playing this Hecarim, which, first of all, I think might be the strongest jungle champ right now, besides Udyr, but Udyr is permabanned, so what can you do? But Hecarim's so dirty. But everybody else on TSM, I was keeping track. They inted at least one time. Spica, on the other hand, 0 ints. Nice 3-2 scoreline on the jungler. Lovely. And he was really sort of the centerpiece of this TSM team comp, where they were running the Shen, Hecarim, Kai'Sa, and I can't remember the other champions. But point being, that trio is nasty for diving. And it all depends on the Hecarim hitting the right targets and positioning well because the Shen comes in on top of him, and then the Kaisa comes in on the CC target. So I remember specifically, was it the last game-winning fight? It might have been the game-winning fight. He ults the Tristana, which is like the number one carry on TL, and he fears them, but Tristana jumps away in time, and it's like, oh, I'd be thinking in solo queue, well, now she's going to plow me. But then you see this Kaisa pick able to fly in. Tristana's at 70% HP. That's more than enough for this Kaisa to assassinate this Tristana. And it's just a really clean, like, put together look from the whole team. But like I said, Spica's really the center point. And it's I'm loving it. I've done a full 180. Yeah.
You know what's cool to think about is Spica's the longest tenured player on this TSM roster right now.
That's true. He's probably maybe the youngest too. I'm not sure. Fact checked on that, but
he's definitely. I think he's 19 or 20. He's kind of like a Blabber light this season.
Honestly,
seems like he can do a lot of different things for this team. But it's good to see him taking on like the the primary playmaker role for this org since he's been there the longest. Bjergsen has the most faith in him.
Yeah. And speaking of Bjergsen, like I was just praising that draft, but kudos to Bjergsen. That was a dirty draft, and TSM is sometimes known for not being great at draft and inting away when they pick Zillion into world caliber team.
Yeah. TSM looked really terrible that first week, and in the locked-in tournament, they didn't look really good. Yeah. And they've made such massive improvements. I think we're seeing that Bjergsen's being a really good coach, and he's taking this job really seriously. And it's good to see that he's fixed some of his own personal draft errors, and he's also helping his team improve.
I think TSM are pretty definitively at least the second best team right now. They're tied with 100 Thieves, but we were kind of slamming them earlier, so I think you got to put TSM up there.
Well, we're gonna talk about TL a bit later because we haven't really touched up on them in any capacity much yet.
Yeah.
But one game that I thought was a really good game right off the bat from the draft was C9 versus EG, Cloud9 versus Evil Geniuses.
Yeah,
Cloud9 had a super awesome composition where they whipped out the Yasuo. They had Gragas, Malphite, Rel, some ADC. No one cares about the ADC. It was all about the Yasuo this game in this super heavy dive composition where you can ult off of Gragas or Rel or Malphite on any of the back line. And there's one really pivotal moment in the game where the game was super close all game. Both teams taking trades back and forth. EG had, I forget who they had, but they had Orion in the mid lane, which is a pretty good matchup into Yasuo.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, as the game progresses, there's this one time in the game where Jizuke is bot lane all by himself, and Fudge finds him out with this Malphite, ults him, and I think Kaisa, whoever their ADC was, followed up, and they killed Jizuke.
Oh, yeah.
They took the Baron and a 5v4 teamfight win while Jizuke was dead, and then the game it was a complete inflection point where C9 was in complete control.
Yeah, that's some more of that nice Kaisa really, I feel like, enables you to show off your team play sort of because of that long range dive you can do off any CC. Oops, sorry, dogs are barking outside. What's going on?
I'd like to see teams start banning Kaisa away from TSM also, because it seems like that is Lost's best champion right now.
Yeah.
And I think teams need to push him down his comfort zone a little bit, attack the rookie of this roster.
Yeah. I feel like ADC pool right now that Samira is nerfed and there's not like a holy trinity, is a little bit weird or like a little bit vulnerable, because right now I feel like you have Kaisa, you have Jhin, and then who comes third? Am I just missing something?
I'd say the top three are Kaisa, Senna, and Tristana.
Senna. Oh, I'm trolling. Yeah, for sure. Senna and Tristana are both disgustingly broken. So that brings you up to
I think after that you get into like the Ezreal, Jhin, Varus, Ashe conversation.
Yeah, I can't believe we saw Varus this weekend. Lethality. What? I didn't think
his Q's chunked.
Well, they chunked some people, and then some people. Tom Kench took negative damage. But
Yeah, and then once you have a Hecarim diving onto him, no mobility.
yeah, I was saying
Ding, ding, ding.
he should have gone on hit. I'm a sucker for on hit Varus.
So wait, so we have Tristana, Senna, and who's the other? Kaisa.
Isa and Jin.
So I don't know what Kaisa builds, but I'm pretty sure Tristana
She just goes crit now.
and Senna both build the not Immortal Shield Bull, the Kraken Slayer, which is what I was talking about a couple weeks ago, where we're seeing this kind of come to a fruition more so in the ADC position, but I think Kraken Slayer is the best ADC item right now.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's a nerf that happens in the future, because once you nerf that down, then Kaisa becomes number one, and then everyone's kind of in the same boat of like who's good, who's not.
Yeah, I've been so the Kraken. This is just my. This is not holy gospel. So I've been spamming Tristana, and I feel like ideally you always want to go Kraken Slayer. You do so much more damage with it. It's insane. But like I think I feel almost like Shield Bow is largely useless. Or not Shield Bow. Sorry, that's the good one. I like Shield Bow. If you're behind or there's a lot of
Gale
dive.
Force.
Gale Force was once the premier item. Do you remember that? Everyone was going Gale Force. Even like not ADCs were going Gale Force. Assassins were. I feel like that's been nerfed now. The damage on it is nerfed. I think maybe the cooldown was nerfed. And now I think
the cooldown was nerfed by like, it was like a 30 or 60 seconds, and they added another 30 seconds.
Yeah. So I feel like Shield Bow, if you know you're going to go Shield Bow before like loading screen, I think it can be a really viable thing where you sort of stack that shield and then you can go overheal and you can become like almost a drain tank DPS sort of monstrosity.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously that depends on team comp. If they have a lot of tanky individuals, you don't really want to do that. But if they have a lot of squishy divers, like I don't know, Camille.
No, I feel like that's when you do want to do it against tanky comps.
You want the lifesteal against tanky comps?
I
see what you mean.
Actually, I have no idea.
I see what
I
you
think
mean.
I think maybe poke is the best that you would want lifesteal into.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you get poked out by like a Zoe Q, and then you go to Wolves real fast, and then come back. I don't know, to be honest.
This is just my solo queue rambling. So I like going if I'm like behind a lot, or if I take this specific build, I go Shield Bow, and then Phantom Dancer is absurd. It's great. I love it.
Oh, what changed about it? I didn't even know.
I forget if you hit someone one time or if you hit them multiple times, you get like 30% attack speed boost, and obviously that's really good on ADCs. So you go that, and then you go Phantom Dancer, and then I go Bloodthirster, and I become like this uber shielded, overhealed monstrosity, and that's fun. Maybe it's not super good, but
this is how to rampage through your solo queue games.
Yeah, hold on. I'm gold 4, my friend. All right.
If you are hard stuck bronze, you should be taking notes right now.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Who else do we got? On the docket here? So we've talked TSM. We've talked 100 Thieves a little bit. You wanted to talk TL?
Yeah, we can talk TL. I wanted to touch up on Dig super quick.
Yeah, let's get them out of the way. I feel like there's probably not super much a lot to say. But.
I mean, it seems like they have a very clear, refined play style where they let Dardoch go ham in the early game. He's been playing well. Then they transition into really strong team fights where, Aphromoo kind of shines, takes over. I think Aphromoo in particular has looked really, really good on a signature champion, Alistar. He keeps picking it. Aphromoo, this is where his name originated from. I'm 90% sure, because
it's got to be, right?
One of his like signature things has been the cowbell skin for Aphromoo, where you have the dance where like hits the bell. Yeah, and that's just kind of where his name originated. And he can play it into Rel. You need really fast timings on your Q to interrupt that combination, which a lot of supports haven't been able to do. But
are you talking about that?
That was rough. But Aphromoo looked good.
Yeah, agreed. I'm a little concerned for Dig. They went 1-2 this week, and their wins were against bad teams or bad team,
One, oh yeah,
Immortals, and then they lost to CLG, which is a big and 100 Thieves, which is less cringe. But also, if you want to be cementing yourself as one of those top teams, you want to prove it by beating specifically those 100 Thieves teams. You can have flukes against these lower teams, but you really want to be beating those high teams.
I mean, to be fair, both those games were kind of long fiestas where they just lost out in the end. I think the CLG game in particular, Dardoch got all the early kills on Italy, and then his spears just still weren't breaking through the front line, even though they were so far ahead. And then, so he's basically negated, and when he's negated, it's almost like CLG is tied with gold the whole time. So they just kind of ran through that comp later in the game.
Yeah. And that 100 Thieves game, I'm looking at the score lens now. That's the one where DeMonte went 0-4, but Dardoch did super well. Most of his team did well, and it looks like Closer and Someday really just gapped them a little bit, unfortunately, but it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe and, not.
Yeah, and I mean, and like, if we're not really giving credit to 100T for that win, I feel like we shouldn't really give credit to Dignitas for that loss. Just a fiesta.
It's just fair, right? That's just being fair.
It's just one of those games that happens that you just push out of your mind.
Oh, I've had a lot of those recently. Trust me. So, do you have anything else about Dig?
No, we can move on to TL.
So TL is a weird case, I feel like, because they're a little bit lower in the standings, and yet I still feel like they're this super powerful team. Like almost the opposite of these like fake teams. I feel like they're a real team like masquerading as a fake team. Maybe they're just hiding their power level. Yeah.
It's funny. So The Dive, it's another podcast produced by Azael, Kobe, and Marks for everyone listening. Definitely go check it out. It's an awesome podcast. They talked about the same thing that you've been talking about, where they're talking about pretenders versus contenders. And they gave some really good insights into why TL isn't a pretender and they're still kind of a contender. It seems like every week there seems to be something off where like Jensen's not playing well, or Alfari's getting bad champions, or Core's off. They don't have the same struggles that persist from game to game. It seems like a game to game basis, something randomly happens, which once you get into like a best of 5, where you have a larger sample size and one game doesn't matter as much, that's not going to impact a series like it's going to really impact a solo queue game or like a singular game.
That TSM game where Tactical runs through River and like through mid lane and Power Hero just one-shots him because what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then he comes back and he starts hitting the tower all alone and he just one-shots him again.
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah. I see what you mean.
Tactical hasn't looked great.
No. Well, I think he had this week or in general, do you think?
I think in general he hasn't looked that like dominant.
Take. I'd have to do some review, but I think this week for sure he looked a little shaky. But
I mean, if he was being dominant, then I feel like this team shouldn't be like
true, yeah,
6-5 or whatever they are.
Why do you think they are 6 or 7-5? I think they are because, like you said, it's. Oh, I guess you just explained it. You think it's sort of like more, not one-off mistakes, but
I think it's a combination of problems. I think cockiness, just maybe waking up on the wrong side of the bed. So it's not really like a mistake that you can pinpoint, which is why they're still kind of contenders, because you think they still have really good macro and consistently have been good the last like 6 splits.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I think Santorin's been looking good, which for the past couple of years at least, having a really good jungler to sort of make plays happen around the map has been sort of key. Like mid jungle has been sort of the most important duo, locking in like a competent duo there. And
he reminds me of a lot of Smithy's like old play style. Kind of like this.
Good or when he was washed up.
When he was good, he's kind of like this control player, good at shot calling, maybe like, and that's how Team Liquid's kind of built. That's how they've like structured themselves, as kind of this fortress composition, more like a Korean team where they're like controlled. They take like 70-30 plays rather than like 60-40 plays. And I think that large part of that was because of Smithy. So maybe reverting back from Broxa to Centauran, who can play better at their roots, I think will be good for them long term.
So sort of interesting. So you just mentioned that they're sort of like a fort. I like calling them a fortress, like a fortress comp. But so they were really known for like sort of squeezing these small leads out and then growing them gradually until all of a sudden they were thousands of goals ahead. And that to me sounds like a strategy that will work against teams that are worse than you, that don't know how to excuse me, that don't know how to sort of break that stranglehold. And I wonder if this sort, I say slump, but they haven't even slumped that hard. They're 7-5. They're in that third place slot. If they, if the standings work out, they can claim that third place slot. So they're not really slumping, but I wonder if it's a case of these other teams just elevating. Obviously, there are teams that are doing the opposite of elevating, like we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still sort of above those teams. I might be talking smack now about that.
I mean,
yeah,
a slump for TL after the lock-in tournament is not going undefeated. Like that's what we were expecting. So 7-5 is like wow, like the world's ending, because we thought they were about to be undefeated. But
I guess that's what it is. Yeah, that's why I feel like they're slumping so hard when really they're, a solid third place team potentially. But yeah, I think we predicted, maybe not hard and fast, but we were talking about an undefeated split in like the first episode, I think.
We were going game by game, and every time TL came up, you were like, we don't even need to talk about that.
Well, that's a TL game, so you know what's going to happen there. Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Like, they've lost some like easy games, like to FlyQuest, for example, where they picked Kennen, and then they blind picked Kennen, who's not really blind pickable, and the Revenge got Irelia and just ran them over. These are like some of these cockiness games where they should have won if they weren't being cocky. I'm not really worried about TL, but on the other hand, I think 100T definitely have some clear weaknesses. Same with EG. I think Dig and TSM are taking the necessary steps going forward, and because they're like improving certain aspects and they're adding more things to their game. So even if right now maybe 100T is a better team than TSM, it seems like 100T has been going like this and TSM is going like that at an upward slope, and eventually they're going to pass them. I think C9 on the other hand has been doing everything good. So
Oh, I just had a question. Oh my goodness.
About a team?
It's something you were saying. Is it going to come to me, or am I going to have to leave it? I'll leave it for now. We'll come back.
I hate this. No, we have to think about
so
this.
Frustrating, right? Yeah.
TSM or Cloud9, EG, 100T.
Oh, I remember. So do you feel like Dignitas is technically in second place right now, right? Or no, they're not. No, they're not. They're in third. They're tied for third. So where do you put Dignitas compared to 100 Thieves and EG, who are, one of them is tied and one of them is a win ahead? Where do you?
So far,
yeah,
Dig has taken a really good direction as a team on what their identity is as a team and where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they physically have enough talent to add more layers. I don't know if it's possible. 100T and EG, they definitely have the talent and the history in place to add more layers and to get their like fundamental play style even more refined. So I think when it comes to playoffs, there's no way Dignitas wins the whole thing. There's like 0.00001% chance. But they have like almost like a 50-50 shot of beating like one of these struggling teams in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'd say 100T has like a 10% chance of winning the whole thing, but in the first round they have a 50-50 shot against Dig. I don't know if that makes sense. That's
No, that
my
makes sense.
answer to your question.
What do you think about EG though? I think EG is
What do
worth.
you think?
I think EG right now looks like the worst out of the three. Like personally, Jizuke is struggling. I feel like he showed up this weekend on like some Oriana games, but then again, that is one of his champions. So when you put him, we've talked about this before. When you put him on not one of his champions, his small champion pool, he plays Lucian and runs it straight into the tower 2 times in a row.
I mean, I don't even know if I think Jizuke's been like so terrible. Sometimes he has these weird mistakes, but I feel like he has a good idea in mind. I think Svenskeren, on the other hand, is like
You're a Svenskeren.
I'm not as he just seems like he's like nothing's going through his mind when he does some of these things.
Yeah.
It's just like, dude, drink a cup of coffee. Like, what? Did you get enough sleep? Like, I don't know, but their mid jungle hasn't looked good. So I guess when you compare that to
That's true.
DeMonte and Closer, and then you compare that to Dardoch and Soligo, who have looked pretty good at,
Which is
I don't
crazy
know.
that Soligo is looking good in LCS. I remember when he was getting flamed.
Their whole team is looking. I like their team a lot. I'm rooting for them. I hope they do well.
Yeah, I'd probably go 100 Thieves, Dig, EG. I think right now,
Like
but
as of right now, or like you're saying in playoffs.
like right now. I mean,
Right now, I
hopefully.
think I go Dig, 100T,
Interesting.
and then EG. 100T just because their bot lane and top are so dominant, though. It's not like I'm that impressed with whatever they're doing.
Yeah. It's
Like
rough.
I'll put them second just because of skill alone, not because of their gameplay.
Second place in the league or in this little mini ranking we're doing.
In this mini ranking,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been seeing DeMonte get he got absolutely demolished by Perks last weekend again.
Oh yeah, he did.
He got
Oh
demolished.
yeah.
Perks LeBlanc solo killed him level 2 while
Oh,
DeMonte was on his ear.
oh my
First
gosh.
back gets Majaz.
There. Okay. Yeah. There's another example of DeMonte's bad mage play. I was focused on the Oriana, but I think the one I was really thinking of was that Azir play. Because yeah, he gets solo killed like level 2, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Doing something funny. He's like walking up
And
into
then the game's just over at that point.
Yeah, if LeBlanc solo kills your Azir at level 2 and shoves the tower under or the wave under tower.
And then first item Majaz to just basically say like, I'm gonna eat you alive. Why are you? This is my league, buddy.
Yeah, I mean,
So
honestly, I was just gonna say,
yeah.
speaking of like Perks and C9, do you think we even need to talk about them that much? Because we talked about Fudge a little bit, which I feel like is the most interesting part of the team.
I mean, we
Since,
are running on 48 minutes,
excuse me.
so we should be doing more like spark notes on whatever else we want to talk about.
We talked about Fudge; he's improving, and I feel like the rest of Cloud9 is so good. We talk about it week after week. Blabber's a king, Perks is a king, Botlane's kings, all kings on this team, full team of kings. Until someone shows that they're better than them. I don't know.
I'd say the one thing I'll highlight with this if I'm another team and I'm looking at this team from the outside and thinking about what their weaknesses are, it's Fudge hasn't shown the team hasn't shown a capability to play through Fudge, so I don't know how you'd abuse that. And then Vulcan, sometimes it's when he's desperate, sometimes when he's over eager, he makes these weird engages, which I'm like, you shouldn't do that. So I don't know how you abuse those two things, but those are the only two weaknesses I see in them.
I agree, yeah. Maybe play some Camille Galio, get that top side, run a train on the top side. But yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I think we're about done talking about teams. I just want to say I don't know, Impact not being a huge playmaker is I feel like it's proven to be a little bit of a liability in this specific team where, like you said, Sven Skaren's kind of not doing too much in the jungle. and then Jizuke's flipping a coin. Oh, if you had a good, strong top laner, I feel like that would boost your win rate super well. Anyway.
I guess one other thing I wanted to mention was I think Finn has looked pretty good this split so far.
Yeah.
I've been happy with his Aatrox and his Gnar play. A lot of people were giving him heat from his split in LEC and his split at Worlds, but he's been holding his own in the LCS so far from what I can tell.
Yeah, but hey, now we're in that.
He seems like to be him and Wild Turtle seem to be the saving grace of this CLG roster right now.
Saving grace. Yeah, what a weird team, man. I think they still have 100% first blood rate. If I remember.
Yeah, that's whack.
And like, if you have first blood, you have like a 60% chance to win your League of Legends game.
Well, there's a 40% chance it's dragging it down, I guess.
I saw this post on Reddit that was like, because of CLG, if you get first blood, there's actually like a 48 in LCS. There's actually like a 48% win rate now because CLG gets it and loses every time.
Oh man,
you're better off not getting it. If you see that 1 HP player in front of you, let him be.
Do you have any? I mean, I'm pretty much set on my side, but if you have any other things you wanted to touch on?
Just like those 2 C9 games next week are looking real juicy, the TSM one and the TL one. Like I said, until a team can show that they're better than Cloud9, I feel like it's like beating a dead horse a little bit, talking about how great they are.
Yeah.
Until someone exposes a weakness, you know? So those two are the ones I think that could, and I think they both should just be really exciting games, fun to watch. I'm hyped. Gonna drink a brewski while I watch, probably. Cold one, boys.
I think those two weaknesses I pointed out for C9, it seems like those aren't enough for the other team to abuse them. So I don't think you can attack C9. I think you need to focus on your own game plan and have a strategy that you're prepped at, and you need to be better at whatever C9's doing, which is really tough because C9 only has 2 glaring weaknesses. Meanwhile, sometimes TSM it seems like there's lapse in communication. And it seems like what?
That's a glaring weakness. Even it's like yeah.
It's like sometimes Vulcan does weird stuff. It's like all right, what are you gonna do with that? And then TL, they have a bunch of random stuff from week to week, but we'll see.
I think you're right about the top lane thing, though. I think if a team really can play top lane well, Huni been looking good. Let's see it. I don't know why I'm rooting, but
Fudge also has looked good from the weak side. He's been playing it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that's why I think these 2 games are going to be, that one TSM game especially is going to be looking very exciting. Because I think, as I said, TSM is the second best team. First v second. Sign me up. Sign me up, baby.
I think TSM's avenue to winning that game, I don't know. I haven't thought about this. We're at 53 minutes. I'm sure I could say some random thing that would be interesting, but I don't want to keep everyone waiting.
Yeah. Like we said, Spica looking like Blabber Light, so what are you going to do when you're up against the real thing?
Good point. But everyone at home, thanks for listening. This has been the 5th episode of DoubleBuffs, and I'll probably post this tomorrow morning on Friday. But you can come back here basically every single Thursday night. We'll be having a new episode on NALCS with your favorites, Cristiano and myself.
That's me. Yep.
And thanks for listening.
Yeah, it's been real. See you.